Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to another interesting episode of Let's Talk Live. And as you can see, I'm not alone in the on the program today. We have a very beautiful, scintillating, until that's one word you usually use. I don't know if you remember that one word you usually use. Okay, so I'll just quickly read your bio and I'll try to introduce you as quickly as I can. But before we get to it, as I said earlier, this is Let's Talk with Chisom. I'm your host, Chisom Wanoro. And if this is your first time of joining, Let's Talk is about we're all about life-related issues, contemporary issues, but we look at them from a Christian perspective. And the whole concept of the life, having guests come in, share their experiences is to, let us know that whatever we are going through in our own little spaces, we are not alone. Someone has gone through it, and they're able to share insight on how they were able to go through it. So, with that said, let's hit the road. So, Auntie, I'm just going to read your bio. That's the brief version.
Okay.
The brief version, of course. And yeah, hold on. Yeah, have it. So, meet our guest, Uloma Umeano. She's many things to many situations. She's a multipreneur, she's an author, and she's best described as a cutting edge creative and vastly talented solution provider. She has worked in and for several blue chip organizations in the specialization of marketing communications, talent development, and organizational culture consulting. Uloma is the CEO of Century Culture Limited. That's a business transformers, a talent productivity transformation focused organization health consultancy. I'm sorry if I didn't get that well. So she's a space setter in the customer service industry. You can tell from all the posts you have online and all that. Her bespoke training programs have inspired and transformed personal lives and company performance in many sectors in Nigeria and other countries in Africa. Finance, telecommunication, public sector, oil and gas, manufacturing, legal, healthcare, education, you name it. Uloma is the founding chairman of She's the founding chairman of Customer Service Practitioners Association, that's CUSPA. CUSPA is an endorsement agency, a regulatory body that focuses on the establishment and management of quality standards in the practice of administering customer service in Nigeria. She's a passionate Christian and reserved social activist. Uloma runs a social media handle. Yeah, we're still reading, we're not done. Uloma runs a social media handle that's sincerely Uloma, which I follow. Yeah, and Peter Pata Million, which mostly addresses integrity and living rights. I'm not done. So as she's also a mom, she's blessed with three sons, graduates in various fields, and now pursuing diverse interests. And as a wife, she's happily married to her number one fan, an extremely supportive husband. And so you forgot to add that you're a glam mom. You're a
Ooh,
glam mom. Yeah, you did add that.
yeah.
Yeah, so we are so happy to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, so for those of us that might not know, I usually call her Auntie Loma, so pardon me if I'm being so informal and calling you Auntie on the program. Yeah, so Loma, if this is not your first time on Let's Talk, I was privileged to interview you when you had your book launch. And it was a beautiful experience. It was really a beautiful experience. So just, I know I've introduced you a bit, so I'm just going to let you tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and it's so beautiful to be here again. Chisom, you're one of my main daughters.
I know.
I was here. In fact, it was before the launch, if I remember, of the book. That you and I had this session. So you
Yeah,
had a sneak preview. In fact, I think you read the manuscript before the book even came out, and we had an
yeah.
opportunity to really talk about it and maybe even prep for the launch. And we thank God, that the book, has been doing what I heard that it was going to do, because it was actually an assignment from God. And it was in obedience that I wrote that book. And I will talk a bit about that, I'm sure. Now, what am I? I am still all of those things that you shared. It was funny. You said you were reading the short version of my profile, and it was going on forever and ever. And I was
Yeah,
like, okay, so if you had read the long version, what would have happened? You'd have been reading it up till this moment. Um,
exactly.
that's not to say that I am, it's been a life that has been lived, by the grace of God, and it's people ask me, how did you know that you wanted to do the things that you're doing or be the person that you are? And I just tell them, to be very honest, I have never had a clue what I want to do or who I want to be. I just, go by the leading, of the leading. First of all, it was a leading that was personal. And then when I met Jesus, it has been a case of, the Holy Spirit just leading me. Whatever he says do, I do. So yeah, I found myself in various aspects of marketing communications, and that is what has pretty much defined my career. And all that would not have been possible if I didn't have the stability of the home that I have. You've already talked about my husband Chidi, and there is of course my three sons that I totally dote on. My life is all around them, even when they don't have my time. As they grow, because the last one is, almost, I mean, he's
Yeah.
as old is. So I don't really have children. I have young men that are very good friends to me, and I love that. So yes, I've done quite a bit of multipreneurship, like you described, and one of the more interesting things today is that I'm also doing that in where I am right now, which is in Canada. So centric culture has gone global. And that in itself has been very interesting. And I hope I'll have an opportunity to talk about it. I think that's enough for you.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Auntie. I know that due to the time difference, I know it's actually a lot for you to, to be here at this time because it's rather morning, in Canada and it's evening here. And I know that people are more disposed to, events like this in the evening. So I know it's a lot of sacrifice for you to do this. Thank you so much again
My
for
pleasure.
joining. Yeah, so you spoke already. I read, yeah, I actually read the brief version of your bio. Yeah, I did. So you spoke a bit about yourself, and of course, I read the bio, and which is really loaded. I must say, I want to be like you when I grow up. So, but yes, one thing that really stands out for me, when it has to do with you, is one, your faith, your love for God, your love for God's people, and how vulnerable you can get, how open you are. When we meet people that are much older, many times, they're like, no, I didn't fail in school. I got first all through, and it was good. I just dropped from heaven like a saint that I am. But you're not one of such people, and he helps younger people, people like us to be able to relate and know that, okay, this auntie that is up there doing all that, she once, had those baby steps and, she's been able to walk through it and she's better and, it's really encouraging. Now, that brings me to your book. When we said, and we have a lot of people joining, I just want to look at this. I'm a student of fashion. Okay, someone introduce himself. Oh, but it's good to have you around. I'm sorry, I might not be able to pronounce the name. I don't want to slaughter the name. It looks like a good name, though. And Shekin says hi. Hi, good to have you around. And Tunde says hi. Hi, good to have you around. And oh, okay, I'm not going to read the other comments. Yeah, so back to what we were saying. Yeah. That brings me to the book. When we were, going back and forth regarding today's meeting, and we were like, okay, what would you like us to talk about? And you had so many options, which yes, I would love to talk about all those things, but I just felt if we take the book, we will touch everything, which you totally agreed with. Now, the book, which we have very much spoken about, for those of us that don't know, Uloma is the author of Guilty but for Grace, which is a book that, you said is not a memoir, but it actually told so many things, which it's not the story of one person, but it has the story of more of one person. And we are privileged to have that person here today. Yeah. So that book, you wrote so many things in the book. And I remember when we had that session before the launch, you said, Chisom, I am not sure what my children would say when they see this book. I'm not sure what my family would say when they see this book. And I've been so curious to find out when they saw the book, what was their
What did they
reaction?
say?
Yeah.
Okay, good question. You know the truth? When it comes to my children, I have no idea still because nobody has told me anything. I don't know who has read it and who hasn't read it.
Wow.
But all I know is that it's out there.
Okay.
I think my daughter-in-law may have read it, because I get certain nuances, but nobody's coming out direct to say whether they did or not. But in terms of my siblings, maybe, and my mother, maybe, mom, not quite any feedback, but my siblings especially, my elder brother was at the launch, if you recall. And I
Yeah.
remember when he was making a speech, because he had read the book now and he was now supposed to like talk to the book, and he just kept shaking his head like this girl is just mad, that who does this? Who opens up themselves like this? Nobody does it.
Like,
There's all
mm,
there's some no-go areas in people's lives, that they just die with. Nobody ever gets to know that they were those people or that they did those things, and nothing spoils. Do you understand? They get by.
yeah.
But no, not to love her. She has to say, and all that. So that was my brother Chinedu, and then even the comments that my immediate elder sister, EJ had, same sort of thing. She was like, I had no idea that Uloma went through these things, and why will she now want to tell the world all that, and I understand it, but I guess I was being a bit selfish, At the end of the day, really, it's about my faith, and it's about my salvation, you know, and it's about my relationship with God. He insisted that I write this book. It wasn't
Mm,
it wasn't something I wanted to do. Um, and one of the reasons why he did that was because you know how you do this whole Christian thing so much that people almost begin to eulogize you, you know, and they are thinking, oh, this perfect person, you know, and you're not perfect, if you know what I mean. At least you were not before you met Christ, you know,
yeah.
and I was like, this is a lie. I'm living a lie because people are thinking, oh, she fell down from heaven, like you said, and all that. Because all they see is the certain side of you, all they see are the things that you do, But we are not human doings. We are human beings. Okay. So I
Mm,
needed them to know what I am, what I be. And that was one of the first reasons why. So it was like God was saying, open up yourself so that everybody can see that no matter what it is, no matter what you have been, no matter what you have gone through, you know, you can come to me and everything is, zeroed and you're fine,
mm.
you know. And I struggled. The more I wrote, the more I felt I'm never going to publish this. I am never going to publish this.
I can
I am
imagine.
never going to publish this,
Yeah.
but it was a good catharsis. It was a good way of, just addressing some of the things that had just sat at the back of my head as guilt, So you're speaking, with a group of people, and you're talking about any of the topics that are in this book, and you're talking about it from a now perspective rather than the whole, which is what was and what now is. And it's because when you're doing the normal thing that human beings do, which is be cagey about yourself and what you share and what you do not share, right? So I got to the point where I realized that there was a certain uh, independence and liberty that I was going to have if I obeyed God. And God's love language is obedience. So the more you are keeping things away from Him, that love is not happening. So I had to be
Exactly.
instructed and I had to do it. And I'll tell you something, Chisom. I don't think I've ever done anything as freeing That's what I did with this book. You know, it was just freeing because it was like, okay, devil, what do you want to hold now? Do you get it? What do you want to hold now? Yeah, I mean, it's all there. It's out there. You know, because I
Yeah.
find that most things that are most things that hold us down are the things that we keep in secret, the things that we keep in the dark. And you know, the evil one will come and be whispering to you that, you know, hey, this is who you are now. So, you know, but when it's open, he has nothing to hold. When I did the launch in London in my brother's church, I remember a certain member of their congregation that came to me at the end of the service and told me that he is jealous of me. And I was
Wow.
like, sorry? So he said, what you have done to your faith with this book is not only brave, but it is bold and it is so freeing that I wish I could go through the process myself. You know? And
Wow.
that was, so in my mind, I was like, he gets it. He gets it. And that
Yeah.
was so fulfilling. That might be the only direct feedback I've received, you know, in that my but it was enough. I said, even if it is just one person that God wrote this book for, I have reached that person and he gets it, you know. So yes, it was a difficult book to write. It was even more difficult to publish, and it's been good because it's all out there. But there might be a part two.
Oh, wow. Wow. Are you serious? Okay, but let me just ask. Okay, no, were you done talking? Let me just wait
I'm done. I'm
when
done.
you're.
Yes, yes. Carry on. Carry on.
Okay, so Batu, is it like a continuation of Inky, which was the main character in the book, or is it like the other version that came to know Christ, or so that I just have like a mental picture of what to expect?
Well, Chisom, the next one will be marriage.
Hmm. Okay.
Marriage is an institution that is very complicated, and it
Hmm.
doesn't get easier if you know God. It's still
Hmm.
what it is, you know. And so I think that there are also some freeing things, concepts
Hmm.
that need to be said. You know, that's as much as you're
Wow.
going to get.
As in, like, I'm just trying to like wrap my head around it, but I'm like, okay, seeing what you did with Guilty but for Grace, I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I don't know what to expect in this. I'm
You're
just going to keep
scared.
my fingers crossed. Yeah. I'm just going to
let,
keep
let, let me let me just put a little bit more light to it. Um, the institution of marriage, right, is God's best way of describing to us our relationship with Him.
Yeah, that's true.
So it will be in the light of that truth. It will be in the light of that
Mm.
understanding, you know, that it's not any different from our relationship with Jesus. It's not any less, you know, demanding. It's not any less important. You know, it's really Him. You know, because if you remember, you know, as a child of faith, everything about the Old Testament was a type and a shadow, you know, of what was to come. You know, everything
Yes.
was talking about Christ. Everything was talking about what was to come, and so he works with us in that manner, where he's always giving us, you know, examples through different things. Marriage was one example that he gave us for what our relationship with him will look like and what it has to be. So that will be the focus with which I shall be coming at the book. It will be interesting.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm just hoping that I'll get to like take a sneak into it, a peek
You'll be the
into
first
it.
one, I promise you.
Thank you. I probably would have like a pre-launch and have a conversation and discuss about it. I'm looking forward to it, really.
Okay.
And someone said in the comment section, said waiting for part two. That's interesting.
Yes, yes. You
So
guys, no,
so
don't
so
put me
just
under pressure, but I'll do it though.
no, I won't. Promise, I won't. Okay. Okay, so just so we don't lose our audience, because it's like we've been in our own world and just talking based on the book, and I just hope that we are carrying them along. Now, going through the book, there were snippets of experiences, pockets here and there that were shared. Now, as rightly said earlier, so if you have not seen this book, you really need to read that book, Guilty but for Grace. It's one. I don't think I've read a book that is that sincere and that vulnerable, and it's, as you said, freeing. So I feel everyone needs to read that book. So if you haven't, I believe it's on Amazon, right? It's
Yes, it is.
on Amazon. So please just check it out. Guilty but for Grace. It's, if you know you're struggling with something and you just want to walk through that process. I believe that this book is, knowing who wrote the book and knowing where the book came from. And I like the fact that you inserted, scriptures here and there. It just made you feel like, yes, I was this, but the love of God came in and this, and it felt so good. So I would really recommend that book to anyone that is, going through that phase in their life.
Let me come in there, Chisom, because that is very important to add. Every one chapter discussed a particular vice, if you want, and it always ended up explaining that it was a vice. So I
Yeah.
wasn't eulogizing the vice. I wasn't
Yes.
beginning to say it is good to do this. Because I
Yeah.
wrote it in such an interesting manner that if you don't read the end, you might decide to go and try some of the things I talked about. So
No,
it
but
was
it didn't come across to me like that at all.
that's because you read the whole thing. You know, because if you
Oh,
don't read to the end of the chapter, you might just be like, "Man, this is so interesting. This is really," and especially for young people that are very
mhm.
explorative. You know, they'll just want to
Yeah,
find out what it actually means
adventurous
and
and
all that,
all
and
that.
adventurous exactly. So it was important to anchor it, to anchor every
Mhm.
experience in. But this is wrong. This is
Yeah.
what the scripture says, and this is
Yeah.
the prayer that we should therefore pray. So every
Yeah.
one chapter ended that way, which was, I think, also just something that came from the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, and it was so beautiful, really, so beautiful. So, and now I'm going to ask you, amongst all the stories you shared there, which one would you say was most striking for you?
Striking, did you say?
Yeah.
Striking. I think every last one of them, really.
Mm.
Let me just talk about the seven. I had seven chapters with seven themes, right? And the first one was Kissed a Girl. Now, Kissed a Girl was discussing lesbianism, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I had the other one that was Baby Love. Baby Love was talking about, that there's something in young teenage women that makes them so curious that they just want to try out this thing that adults are doing, you know.
Yeah.
And so I talk about that, what I call it, like the infatuations that I had, the people that I met, and things like that. Then the third one is particularly icky, which is flushing it out, which is talking about abortion. And then
Mm.
there's number four, which is a drug addict emerges. Now, a drug addict was talking about smoking, getting into the habit
Yeah.
of actually smoking cigarettes. And
Mm.
number five was titled "In Love with the Bad Boys," because that is in
Mm.
itself a whole other different thing for young women. And so that was addressed in that chapter. And then number six was femme fatale, right? And femme fatale. Now I know
Yeah.
that's one of the ones that you liked. That's the one that says that young
Mm.
women, especially beautiful young women,
Yeah.
get to a point where they think, not they think, they find that they can't help themselves, but they begin to use what they have, either to
Mm.
get what they want or just to get some kind of fame or to get some kind of, you just realize that, come on, this my beauty is actually a strength. I can use it and get things done, that kind of thing, So that's what femme fatale is about. And then the seventh part is early marriage, really, which leads therefore to my next book, which says the confusion called marriage, and because a lot of us entered marriage for various reasons, and so I addressed that. And so I don't know what you want us to talk about.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to pick because I don't know the heart of the writer, and I just want you to speak. Okay, so which one would you like to? I don't want to pick because I might not pick like I might just pick the one I enjoy, which you already know.
Okay, let me start with a drag addict, which was the one about smoking. Um, that one addresses company, the company that we keep, the friends that we have, the influence that comes from that. Because I think we downplay it as parents. And
Hmm.
let me go back a little before I go forward. One other reason why I wrote this book was especially for the young women in my life and my friends who have daughters and all the other people that needed to just know that no matter what mistake you make, the Lord will forgive you. And
Yeah.
then, more importantly, I needed them to know that, we mothers had a life, oh, we had a life before we became mothers. All right. So all this
Mhm.
curiosity that you're having, we have done those things and realized that they're a mess, right? So you
There's
don't so,
that.
so so you don't have to make those mistakes anymore because
Hmm.
we've made them for you. And this is where we are now. Do you understand? So take just bear that in mind. So we allow our children to make their own friends, to
Hmm.
do the things that they do with their friends, and sometimes overly, and you just don't know therefore what will come out of that. um I was friends, with a group of very interesting young women when I was in university. I love them to death. I still do, right? However, some of them were a bit curious, and some of them had a few of these habits already. So it was a case of good girl, but some naughty friends, right? And at first, it seemed like your upbringing was strong enough to keep you from such things, you know but,
Hmm.
but the truth is that it's not. It doesn't always work that way. At a certain
Yeah.
point, either knowingly or unknowingly, you find yourself getting into certain things, and this was really what happened for me. So in the book I talk about my friend who, she's also a believer now. And but she also, I mean, she started early, to smoke. So she used to just always have that cigarette, and all that. And so it became a thing between her and myself, which was, Loms, let's go down to, which means let's go to the wherever it was that they were selling cigarettes. I'll just walk with her because she's such an interesting person. Always had a story, always had something that would make me laugh, so it wasn't a problem to do that. And then we'll come back to the room and we're talking and she's smoking. And then she'll just go, oh, yeah, take one drag, just one drag. And I'll be like, what is that? That's why I call it drag addict. I said, what's that? I think I'll just do it. And then I watch her do things like blow smoke circles and things like that. Very interesting looking things.
Yeah.
I mean, you just never know what you'll be attracted to, and I'll be like, oh, how did you do that? That was amazing. Let me try. Let me try. Do you understand? Hey, let me try.
Yeah.
Blow circles now became, one circle after the other, until I
Hmm.
found myself actually going, let me take a drag. Let me take the other. And then one day she'll bring out the pack and give me one and take one. And then you're smoking. You have become a smoker. You have become a
Wow.
smoker. And that took a long time to break. Of course, it was something that was hidden absolutely from my family. They never ever knew or heard that I was ever smoking a cigarette, but I know what I was doing. Do you understand? And a few of my
Yeah.
friends knew, and it was a habit that even it took like even marriage to break. So you can imagine how long it lasted. So it's
Hmm.
very important for us to watch what our people are doing. And sometimes, and most times, let me say, most times you can't really stop them from expressing themselves, from trying things, but it's important to let them know where you've done. It's important to
Exactly.
let them know what is right and what is wrong. They may not listen to you at the time, but it's entering somewhere. And it is that
Hmm.
truth that will eventually pull them out of those situations. So that's really what that chapter, helped me to establish. I hope. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it really did. And as we had mentioned earlier, the part of you being really open to say you did this and, coming out to talk about it, because the truth of the matter is, I know I probably did not have as much experience as you had, but I know that the first and only time I went to a night party in uni was I just went there out of curiosity. I wanted to see what do they even do there. So I went there, and the usual, people were singing, dancing, drinking, everything. And then I went home and I was like, really? Is that what you guys do? So when time they're like coming, I'm like, no, I'm not going. I'm not interested. But it took me going there to see it and be like, been there, done that. I'm not doing. And many times, as you said, when people have made mistakes and they're like, okay, I've done this and road no dey there, and they're coming back to tell, it's like, I've made those mistakes on your behalf. You don't have to make them. And I think that's what the whole book is about. And another thing you mentioned is you can't really stop people from making trying things out. You can't really stop them from, having those experiences, because many times they say experience is the best teacher. It's when the person don't try it. Now, when the person don't try it, just because they say, this is not working. And, and sometimes when you say it, it might be like, you're just too holy and you too do and all that. Yeah, so I really like what you did with, the book. And I was going to ask, do you want to talk about Kiss the Girl? Just curious.
Yeah, I could. I mean, I could. It's all out there anyway. So again, it comes down to curiosity. Um,
Mm,
it's curiosity, and it's also the influences that we have around us. Because
mm,
most people don't just wake up and become something. It's who they are with, it's who they are listening to, it's the people that affect them. And so it brings me to things like boarding house. When you send your child to boarding school, you are not, I mean, it's bad
mm.
enough when the child is in the house with you. You don't even know what they're doing when they're in the house with you. Talk less of when you send them to
Yeah.
boarding school. Do you get where I'm coming from? So the
Yeah.
life out there is them totally at the whims and caprices of life and whatever life dishes out to them. So what I wrote about, for instance, was, where there was a senior girl and there was a junior girl, and it all starts off with, I'm being protective of this my junior friend. But if you have a senior girl that is that way inclined, part of that protection can become excessive and can lead to
Mm,
certain explorations, and those
mm,
explorations can become what they become. And before you know it, it becomes even a tendency that you crave,
mm,
because that's the problem with most of these sinful things. They are flesh, they titillate the flesh. And so there are
mm,
things that you can't even break at a certain point. You just realize that has become what's happening to you, and
mm.
so that was like a beginning. And the other thing, I'm not even sure if that was in the book. I think it was. Are there other things that happen in the home with staff? Like the nannies and the house helps and so on. Oh my God, they teach you things. They teach you things.
Wow.
And when you're a curious child, when you're just somebody who is wondering, you know, you just fall into it, and you know what they say
Well,
about wrong things. The wrong things are always the exciting things, you get, so when you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, there's an extra adrenaline pumping that happens, that makes you enjoy it
that's
so
true.
much that you want to try it again and again, and so on.
Yeah.
And so that happens under the nose of the parents,
And
under the
yeah.
nose of the siblings, under the nose of the aunties, the uncles, and so on. You just don't know what's going on in your house. So
Hmm.
it was just, so that you can try and all that, but at least you can pray. You can pray and say, God,
Yeah.
let it not happen. God, please let it not happen. Because we're already coming from the point of view as Christians that it is wrong. So anything I talked about, I first of all established how wrong it is by showing you scriptures in that chapter that show how it is wrong
Hmm.
to do those things. And then based on that, what should you therefore do? Pray. pray, cover your
Mm.
children. Cover your children. Whether they're in boarding house or whether they're under your roof, under your nose, cover them, right? And never stop talking about what is right. So if you're watching a
Mm.
movie with them, or if you're somewhere with them and somebody is talking about LGBTQ or something like that and making it seem like it is normal life, tell them it is not normal. It is not
Yeah.
normal. It is not right. It is not of God. It is not to be considered. They have to keep hearing it from you until the Lord decides to make it real in their lives. So that was what I
Yeah.
tried to do with that chapter.
Yeah, and I think I think it's this matter is not as isolated as many of us think it is. It's very it's like it's very near home. Like, how do I explain it? Even in circles that you might not even imagine. Because I remember having one of these live sessions, and the young lady, funny enough, I was with her today during the walk because we went for walk for the girl child. I was with her, and she shared, and she was like, just by mere being the only girl amongst how many boys, she developed the tendency to become a tomboy and, still having liking for the female gender just by mere being the only girl in there. So
That's a
we really
visual.
don't know. So, but for me, I was like, wow, like, is that, you know, it's like you really don't know what the triggers are. So I think that part of covering your children, because, it's a very innocent, someone is the only child or the only daughter. It's not a bad thing in itself, but
Mm.
this is, the outcome is something else. And I just, as you said, her parents were always praying and covering, and it's really helped
Keep
to
praying, keep
help,
praying.
bring her back. And yeah, she was able to share. And as God would have it, as you said, the things that you say to them, it's entering. You might not know, but it's entering.
It is
And
entering.
it was everything that she like her mom kept speaking to her, even when her mom did not understand the entirety of the situation, because they just saw her, she was becoming a tomboy, and she was just, liking to hang out with, like, she hang out with the guys, feeling like I'm one of you. Not
Yes.
hanging out with them like, I'm a fine girl. She hangs out with them like I'm one of you. And then when she's with the ladies, it's like, it's like I'm with the opposite sex. So the orientation was different, and they kept drumming it into her, and then she kept hearing the word of God, and until she said, well, she was able to speak to her parents about it. And there was something she said. She said that the reaction she got from them was not as scary as she thought it was going to be. Like, she knew that they were going to react that way, and they were very calm about it. She would have opened up quite long, and it would have been,
Yeah, yes, if you knew.
yes,
Yes, that's another thing
and
that
it
happened.
would have
Yeah.
helped her to come out of it. And I just thank God for what God is doing through her, because she's now using that story to reach out to other people and just let them know that, hey, better look very well, just the way you said, things happening in the home that we might not even be aware of. You know, that said, I'm just very, very happy for. We could go on and on and on, but I'm trying to like bring the stories together. Um, um, you know, I'm trying to put a book together, and hopefully it will launch. I'll launch it this month, hopefully,
Nice.
and it's thank you, and it's kind of pockets of the experiences I've had. This book is, I'm still writing the book even before we had, when you launched the book. So I was
Okay.
like, oh, you're not ready to run, just leave it there. So, yeah. So it's been how many years coming? And I just felt I had that nudging to, go ahead and launch it.
Mm.
And going through, reading the stories I wrote about myself, I was like, so do you really want to share this? Even though, yeah, even though it was, about the struggles I faced with widowhood and all that, some stories about me, uni and secondary school, some stories, just struggles and all that. So I was like, Chisom, do you really want to share this? So I can relate to that part of you saying, do I really want to share this? It's that's part where you just put it all out there. So I really, really, appreciate your what you did with the book. So, but trying to put everything together, I would love to talk about your entrepreneurship real quick, and then we'll just go. You just tell us. I'll just ask you like a final question, and then we'll call it a day. Which I
Okay.
believe this session has been quite impactful. So I just wanted to tell us, like, for someone that is listening, a young person that's listening, and person's like, okay, this big auntie here, I listened to her bio, and her bio was like forever. Like it took her many minutes to read it. Yeah, and I'm just coming up, and yeah, I might not be going through this, I might not be struggling with this vice, or I might not be but I'm in that phase where I'm trying to discover myself. And how did this auntie know that this is the area? I know you said that you just kept hearing the voice of the Lord, and you just kept following. So what would you say to a young person that is at that place where they are trying to discover the career path to toe, and personality, so what's it called, vision and purpose? What would you say to someone that's at that phase of their life?
Okay. Hmm. Before I go into that, I just want to end the vulnerability discussion with my notes, because I had some things in my notes that I think is good to just read out, right? The first thing I said was that vulnerability is a work of faith, all right? You trust God with your shame. I want that to like
Mm,
land. So there is shame involved, but you trust
yeah.
God in it. What that means is that you know that that vulnerability is not going to swamp you. It's not going to kill you. You're not going to die there. So you trust Him
Mm,
by telling Him, I trust that you will work with this, right? And then vulnerability is terrifying. The courage
yeah.
it takes to reveal your heart is one of the most daunting and yet rewarding experiences in life. It will set you free. All right?
Yeah.
And then the last thing I said was that by being vulnerable, either with yourself or in the presence of another person, that's where all growth and ultimate well being comes from. And the reason why I wanted to read it out was just to make it sink, that guilt is like cancer. It's something that
Mm,
just eats at you. It just keeps eating, eating. It stops you from being your full self. It stops you from having your full life. It stops you from saying what you want to say, honestly. It stops you, it hides you in a certain dark room, and it's just exactly where the enemy wants you to be. Because that's where he can begin to now whisper
yeah.
lies to you. He'll be telling you, don't say that. It will make them seem like this, to make you seem like that, and you're just falling deeper and deeper into the web that he's planting. So when you just do it, when you just open up and say it, it's gone. There's nothing that he can hold on to. And so I just wanted to like end that way.
Yeah.
Entrepreneur.
And
Okay, you
okay,
want to
so
say something?
sorry. While we are still talking about it, because I wanted us to like just nose dive into that and jump out back, but now we're talking about it. You know, I know that we're not done talking about it, because I was still going to ask you. You know, I like the way you talked about vulnerability, and I can relate to it, because talking about, those things that you're not too proud of, those areas that, you just rather want to take it, just me, myself alone, and just manage. It takes a lot of courage to talk about it. And and again, you talked about guilt, which is something that, the devil just uses to come at us. So what would you say to your young self, or a young person, you know if you were to look at yourself some 20 years ago, which advice would you give yourself?
I think the most I'll just put it this way. I wish I met Jesus earlier. I'll,
I
I'll, I'll
think
just start with that.
everything is
That may have taken care of a lot of things. And then the other part to that, to answer your question, I would say, you know, we don't have to try everything out. We don't. The fact that something is out there doesn't mean that you must be a part of it, right? Um, there's
So,
that.
sorry, before you go on, do you mind, like, so you're kind of cutting off the camera? Okay, it's better now.
Is it
Yeah.
better? Okay, all right. So I was saying that it's important to just know that it's not every single thing that you have to try. All right,
Hmm.
and there's something called living. What's the word again? Vicariously. And what
Hmm.
that means is living through other people's experiences. It is a good way to live. And it comes
Hmm.
from having a trusting relationship with whoever, whether it is your parents or your siblings or whatever. When they tell you that something is bad, and they tell you the stories about where it took them, you don't need to go there to also feel it.
Yeah.
So you live vicariously through them. You learn from their experiences, and therefore you don't open up yourself, to get into those types of things. Those are the things that I may have done differently today. Listen, I would have listened better,
Hmm.
and I would have believed better. Um,
Hello. Sorry.
okay, yeah, you kind of disappeared briefly.
Yeah,
So
I
that's what I believe is important. That and bringing it. Okay, well, you're talking about my young self, but taking it back to the parents, the elder siblings, and so on. I think it's also important to say, they need to be vulnerable themselves. So that the child will therefore believe, first of all, what they are hearing, and then they may not have to go through those things. But the thing is, like you said, when you were opening, every father was coming first in class. Every mother was the best cook when they were growing up. So there's
Exactly.
no room for failure. There's no room for vulnerability. There's no room for normalcy. And I think that's really something that we need to change. That's one of the things I hoped to change with this book, with my own children. For them to just see, no, mommy wasn't a saint all the time. She wasn't. But we know what we're
Yeah.
seeing today. And so even when they find themselves in particular situations, they know that with God's help that they can come out of it.
Yeah. I just like the way you talked about it and also talked about you know, that part of meeting Jesus early and, living through the experiences of others, not, wanting to try everything out and everything. I think that just covers everything. Yeah. So thank you so much for that. Now let's now move into because I feel why I'm trying to tie it up is because I believe that many times um, when a child is not or a young person is not properly engaged, there is room for um, there is room for
All
what's the
sorts of
word, excess.
infiltrations and thoughts. And they say that
You know,
an idle mind is a workshop for the devil.
exactly. So I feel if a child or a young person is engaged, they know, okay, this is what I want to do with myself, and this is what my life is about. They are more focused and they are not, too distracted. There will always be distraction. There's nothing we can do about it. But it tends to tone it down a bit. I was listening to, was it my mom that said, kind of it reduces your what he said, it changes your wardrobe, it gives your wardrobe one color. I was like seriously, it just makes everything monochrome. Everything is just defined. You just know that I can do this and I cannot do this. And I feel if everyone, like if a young person understands that, okay, this is what I should do, and I'm thinking, okay, I want to do this thing and I don't know how to do it. By the time I'm done thinking about it, there's no space to be thinking about excessive. Yeah, because you're occupied. So what would you say to a younger person now that is in that space where you're like,
Mm.
okay, what do I even do with myself? How do I even get successful? How do I even walk through this phase of my life? What would you say to
So,
them?
so this is the most difficult question you've asked me today, and
Wow.
and I'll explain why. There's something that happened when I set up Centriculture. In fact, it was first called Customer Centricity Limited, and then we changed our name further down, some years later. It was a partnership. with a friend of mine, and two of us would just walk into a place and train, for instance, their staff. And by the time we're done, their staff will come to us, and their questions won't be about what we trained. It will be about how they want to be like us.
Wow.
Or
That's
almost
a
always, almost always. So they would just be like, we just love your confidence, ma. We just love the words that you use, ma. We just love, whatever it was that appealed to them would be now more important than even what we came to train them about. So,
wow.
so I believe, and that's the way I've kind of left our style of work. I believe that it's also because somehow my style of training, my style of working is honest. I'm very
Hmm.
honest. I don't want to use the word vulnerable again, so that we're not overflogging it, but it is that, in the sense that if I don't know something, I'll tell you I don't know it. Do you get? I'm
Hmm.
not going to pretend. I'm not going to lie. I will certainly not lie. And I'm not going to. And so even the MDs of organizations appreciate that. They
Hmm.
see a certain sincerity that comes from, and it's not, I don't know it, therefore you won't get anything. It's, I don't know it, but give me some time. And I'm going to give you the
Yeah.
best solution possible. And I'll go and do the hard work. But that openness, that sincerity was fresh. I don't know if it's done by other people, but that it was so fresh to most of the potential clients that we had at the time, and some of the clients that we sat with at the time, that it became an endearing thing. So they saw us as their friends. They saw us as people that would not, you know cheat them, as people who would give them their all in terms of effort, in terms of solutions, in terms of commitment, and so on. So I think that was one of the things and I can't tell you, Chisholm, that I planned it. I didn't like sit back and say, when we start business, we shall be sincere. Sorry, I did not do that. I am not a motivational speaker. I don't even understand it. But motivational speakers give the impression that everything can be thought about before you start. I don't know, maybe for them. I just believe that what happens happens. And I think that that is the reason why at so many points in the Bible, Jesus talks about today. Today. He never talks about next week. He never talks about next month.
Yeah.
He never talks about next year. He keeps saying today. Today. Give us
Yeah.
this day, our daily bread. This day. It's always about the day. So he expects you to trust him in that. He expects that
Hmm.
you know that he will meet you. He will meet you at that point where he will do the rest. And I think that was pretty much what it was for me. That, and the fact that I had a different way of looking at success. Success for me wasn't really about wealth. It never was. I don't know. I'm not saying that's right at all, please. And I don't want to be misquoted, because I like money too, if you give me, But, but let's just say that there were so many other things that were important to me, as we were growing the business. One of them was what I've just described, which is friendship, and relationship, with the clients, with the people I train. Some of them still call me today. People that may have trained like 8 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. They'll be like, Uloma, how far? I just saw you online, and then we'll talk. So that was important to me. That was one thing that was important to me. And then more importantly, influencing people through my training was, just let them know better, let their lives change for the better. And that has actually led me to where I am now, because setting up the business also in Canada led me to just rethink what I've been doing, and think about where I want to take the business to. And
Hmm.
again, I was totally, this was in prayer. The Lord just led me into a word called wholesomeness. He said, right now, what you sell is wholesomeness. Let people have a wholesome approach to thinking about themselves, thinking about their work, thinking about their influence, thinking about everything. So it's a whole new level, and I'm learning as I go. Because I don't even quite understand it. But if you get to my website, for instance, you'll see a lot more of that word, instead of all the other things I used to have before. So that's what I mean. And I am a very bold person. I'm not really scared by much. I don't think I'm scared by anything. Actually, is the truth, except God.
Yeah.
So I would do that thing. If it affects my solution development. I can think. I mean, if I think that something will work for you, I will do it, even if it's not done in Nigeria, even if it is not done in Lagos, even if nobody has ever thought about it. I will think about it. I will think it through, and it's gonna happen. And I would talk as confidently with the gatesmen and security guards, because I've trained security guards in pidgin English before. That's a 2-day training in pidgin English, you know. And at the same time, I can and have done strategy sessions for managing directors and executive, managers. So my range is such that I am first of all just a person, and then I am also a person that knows who is behind me and who is pushing me, and so I don't get scared by much, and I'm not really interested in, like I said, it's not about, oh, she's doing so well, she has bought 2 cars and a private jet. No, it's really more like, how much impact has her work had on how many people, and even every time I'm about to start a training, no matter what the topic is, whether it is a leadership training or customer experience management or whatever, I always tell the people, in this training, you're going to have an opportunity to come out of it a better person. So it's not about what topics that you learn in customer service. It's about who you become as a result of the things that you decide to practice after you've done this. So inspiration and inspiring people is very critical to me. And that's really what I think motivates me more than anything else. I don't know if I've talked to the question, but I just want to expand the minds of young people, because young people are very sorry. I have young people in my life too, but the materialism is too much. Everything is about cash. Everything is about whether I go blow. I want to blow. I don't know what words they use these days. But and it doesn't have to be so. I'm not saying don't be passionate about chasing after your dreams and all that. In fact, make sure you are. But it's not always just about that. And there is a
Yeah.
growth process. There's a growth process to things. I know we live in the microwave and whatever age where everything is like now, but there's a growth process to it. And give it that patience, and you will find that you will be solid. You'll be solid as you continue to grow. Another thing I wanted to talk about is, or rather drop before we close, is never stop growing. Like I told you, my focus has entered wholesomeness. I don't know where that is going to take me. It's taking me into places already that I didn't even think I was prepared for, right? And that is the attitude that everybody should have. Be led by your dreams, be led by God, be led by your passions, and listen to God and what He's telling you. He's usually telling you something, and shoot from all. I was sorry. I'm going to just end here. I was telling my niece recently that I shoot from all fronts. I shoot from everywhere. That these days I'm at that level where I am shooting from everywhere. I am doing fashion. I am doing food. I am doing entrepreneurship in consulting. I'm doing, coaching. I'm doing it all. I've come to that point where I realize that, what? I still have some dreams I haven't pursued. In fact, this morning I remembered another one. I like to sing. So I'm going to also pursue that one. So the world is in problem.
Wow, that sounds really exciting. Really. Wow. 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 So I'm so happy about the way you expanded you know, the whole topic because yeah, I had 2 young people tell me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Say, "I want to make money," and I'm like, "That's not a thing." I want to make money. It's not the thing. That's not the career. You get that's an end. You need a means to get to the end. And you just talked about being open-minded and then focus on making impacts and not focus on the money because I think that's once we focus on the money, we tend to lose value, we tend to lose,
Exactly.
the things that make us human, and just because we're chasing after the money.
Very
And
true.
you talked
Very
about how honesty has, because your honesty actually shows your personality, you're being human and not like, there are businesses that don't have a human face and all that. So I think that's honesty and just being yourself. It's definitely going to take every one of us very very long way. So I like the way you expounded it. So it's not just you telling us, hey, pursue your dreams, and yeah, you actually ended with you have to pursue your dreams, and don't just go about chasing the money, pursue the dreams and get things done, but expand your horizon and just think and try also to be yourself. Yeah, thank you so much for this conversation. Excuse me. It's been very very wholesome. We have, as teacher might said, very reverting conversation. Well done to the interviewer for asking the right questions. So thank you, ma, and to the guest for being refreshingly honest. Of course, that is always refreshingly honest. That's our teacher. Thank you so much for joining, ma. Yeah, that's yeah, all the way from the US. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, so I think we've come to the end of today's. At any time I talk with you, it's like let's just keep going on and on and on and on. I bet we're going to bring you in as often as you have the time for us. Yeah,
Always a
thank you.
pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining. We had a lot of people join and I saw some comments, even though I might not read some of them. Yeah, because some of them are actually off. But yeah, thank you, Steve, for stopping by. Yeah, it's been a really, really refreshing time talking with you. As Teacher rightfully mentioned, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. I like the fact that you're being very honest and you give us room to be ourselves, let our guards down, heal, and then the hold the enemy has on us regarding guilt, it's broken, and then we can lift and become who God wants us to be.
Yep.
So, on this note, we come to the end of today's session. Thank you to everyone for joining. And again, we will be coming your way next week, hopefully with another interesting guest. And we'll be talking about life related issues again. And our guest today was Uloma Umeano, the CEO of Centriculture, and I remain your host, Chisom Manoro. Thank you again for joining. Do have a lovely night rest. Thank you.
Thank you,
Happy.
everyone.
Thank you again.
Thank you. You're
Okay,
welcome.
bye bye. Okay, bye everyone.